so let's kick off a brand new special here on the It's a Rap podcast called I Love the 90s in 2026. Yeah, so this is just basically our excuse to talk about 90s revival shows that had their seasons, dropped this year, right? So we will kick things off officially with season 15 of King of the Hill, right? So if you remember, last year, I talked about the 14th season. This will be the first season of the revival of King of the Hill, right? And yeah, that was a show that I enjoyed, right? That's just mainly because of how it managed to stick to its aesthetic while updating the formula in very smart and subtle ways as well, right? And I'm happy to report that this season does the exact same thing but better. Can't believe I'm saying this, and I know that the episode now started, right? But yeah, this season was brilliant. I loved it, and I am loving this revival of King of the Hill, that we've been getting so far, right? And before I get into the premise, right? So I think the reason why I enjoyed it so much, right? Well, why I enjoyed the season more, right? In particular, right? Is because it really reminded me, or at least it showed me, I should say, why King of the Hill is great. Why it's such a great show, right? So we'll just pretty much reiterate what we said last time with season 14, right? We saw it on syndication, i.e. through local TV, right? But it was also one of those shows that they just saw as yeah, that's cool. I like it. I like the vibe of it, the music, the whole Texan vibe and the accents, and of course, Hank and Peggy Hill and all that kind of stuff, right? But it was never a show that I latched on to, right? And it's not just because of the material. It was just okay, well, I was just younger and I was just more gravitating towards shows like X-Men and, more superhero shows, right? And I was just sort of straying away a little bit more from the, animated sitcoms like, say, The Simpsons, which we literally grew up on, right? But yeah, it was just one of those shows that we admired at the time, but we just were not in love with, right? So when it was cancelled in the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken, and then years afterwards, Brittany Murphy passed away and all that kind of stuff. It was still one of those shows where we're we understand its relevance and why, today it's regarded as one of the best TV shows, and sitcoms of all time, right? But it was just not one of those shows where I was yeah, you're absolutely right, right? And then this revival just came out of the blue last year, right? Okay, we doing this? Seriously, Hulu, we doing this, right? And yeah, I was surprised that even with, even though I was not I didn't have a photographic memory of everything that went down in the earlier seasons, it was still easy enough and still smooth enough for me to follow through, right? The characters are there, the voices are there, the actors are there, the setting is there, and the premise at the time was great.
Yeah, if you get because they got Toby has something to do.
Yeah, to play Dale because because Johnny Hardwick apparently he recorded he recorded lines for a few episodes of the last season and then he died. And then they brought in Toby Huss. I think it was for episode 3. Yeah, episode 3 was when they officially brought in Toby Huss. And if you listen to the voice closely, you could hear that it sounds slightly different, but it matching. It matching.
Yeah. You know Artie, the strongest man in the world, right? So if you know that reference.
Yeah.
I know him from, I was a big fan of Halt and Catch Fire, so I knew him from that, so to hear him come through with this, I would.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just the same lovable and likable characters from the show, so it was just a smooth transition from, just seeing it way back when you were young to, you're seeing it much older, right? But before I get into, that's pretty much a straightforward premise of what this season was about. Yeah, you just want to reiterate how you feel about the show then and how you feel about this revival now?
Yeah, I caught up with it after the fact, with after your review, last time. And, they evolved it in a smart way to make it work. Again, everything felt natural, okay, yes, how much 20 years passed and everything involving can't pass and I just thought it made a lot of great calls as it is. And the new voice stuff is I don't have a problem with it. I wasn't super attached to the old voices anyway, so it's alright, cool. Everybody's still funny. Peggy's still funny.
Yeah,
I like what it did with the son. That made sense. They evolved the concepts. Everything felt natural. That's a natural thing to it, and that's why this work. It really nailed the whole slice of life concessions and evolved a modern story. And even in my we old age now, right? We beyond Unk. the conceit of going with just having it feel like a modern story and having you want to follow it is what works, and we can get into that. So yeah, that's
Yeah, exactly. So, season 15 in a nutshell. Hank and Peggy are still adjusting to retired life, basically, because remember, they were in Saudi Arabia, or as Peggy say, Saudi Arabia, for a few years, because, Hank got assigned to work at this company, involved with
right.
propane and propane accessories, right? But yeah, he eventually came back to Allen, Texas, and, he set back shop there. And yeah, he just enjoying retired life, right? He always looking for things to do around the house, and he always always hanging out with his boys. He's still trying to get used to modern times, and I love how this season plays off of that, right?
Right.
And then there's little side adventures, I should say, involving Hank's friends, that will be Bill and Dale, and of course your boy Boomhauer. Even as his own little side quest, basically involving his son. That was a great episode as well, right? Well, great moment, I should say, right? And then last thing I'll say is that in the finale now, don't want to spoil too much here. Yeah, Hank has to go back to his old workplace, right? Because something went down, and I'm not gonna say what happens there, but let's just say that it makes for a very welcome progression of his character, right? And I'll stop there, right? So yeah,
I think I know what it is. I think I saw this leaked on TikTok sometime.
you saw it leaked on TikTok.
Well, somebody just throw the clip and I'm like, oh, this part of the new season. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah.
I think I know what it is.
Yeah, and that actually was a flashback episode because where it's set, it's like pre-COVID, right? So I think it's like around 2018, 2019. No, sorry, it was about 5 years past, right? And this was before, Hank and Peggy, flew out to go to Saudi Arabia, right? So I think it's around like before COVID, basically. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? But yeah, that finale absolutely works for me, right? But yeah, I did not expect to enjoy this season so much, right? And it's a good thing that I recapped the last season, right? Because it was just like a nice little refresher in terms of, hey, this is what went down, last time, right, or last year, right? But yeah, to me, it's just how the characters progress, right, while they maintain that same sort of slice of life vibe and vibe and feel to it, right? Also, this is a very like genuine and earnest show, right? There's nothing mean spirited, nothing dark about it, right? It's very warm, it's very heartfelt, right? And I think that's why you just love the show so much, right? You find yourself just enamored by the show, I should say, right? Acting, just the voice acting, of course, everybody kills it. I mean, when it comes to Hank Hill and Peggy, I mean, is the voices, right? Is the iconic voices, and they're there, and you love hearing them, right? And what they do with those two characters absolutely work for me. I mean, Hank is still that pro-America kind of guy. I like that even in this era, even though they don't mention Trump in any way, shape, or form, even in this era, you understand why a character like him exists, right? Why, he loves America so much, why he loves propane so much, right? Why he loves the outdoor barbecue and all that kind of stuff, right? As opposed to how everything has changed since he, left, the States, right? Peggy, for me, boy, I just sort of paraphrase what it is he had said last year, right? Peggy is so charming, boy, right? Just she's not like ditzy or anything like that, right? But ever so often she would just say and do things that just so dumb. I just bring a smile to your face, like, boy, Peggy, boy, Peggy, boy.
No, she noticed, but she noticed it all the right ways.
I know, boy. And alright, so I'll spoil one particular episode, right? So there's one involving a food critic, right, who went by Bobby's restaurant, right, and he was like doing a review of his a dish that he had there, right, and because he noticed Peggy and recognized, because Peggy was a substitute teacher, right, she will never shut up when it comes to reminding people, hey, I used to be a substitute teacher, right, but yeah, he recognized and realized, oh, you were the one who gave me an F when I wrote a essay back in the days, right? And because of that, he decided to just write some shit about the restaurant, about Bobby's restaurant, right? And Peggy pick up on that, so she go by his place now, his office now, with the essay that the man wrote years back when he was a kid, right? And literally sit down with the man and pick it out hey, this is where you spell this thing wrong. This is where you,
Right.
you pronounce this thing wrong. And that was one of the funniest moments. Swear to God, that was one of the funniest things I seen that season. Hands down, Trent. It brutal, like from a Peggy Hill standpoint, but it's so funny, Trent. You know what I mean? And it's something that someone like she would do, right? Someone who just kind of don't think things out clearly. You know what I mean? She just always goes by her. Well, not so much by her gut. That would be like what Hank does. She always kind of goes by what her heart says, right? That's basically how it is, right? And yeah, of course, when it comes to Hank's friends, Bill is still sad. Like he's like one of the saddest characters in this show. I mean, it's so funny too. Him just being a widower, sorry, right? And him just always thinking of women that he want to hit on. Last season, he had this thing involving Peggy, like telling his black friend, sorry, right? That Peggy was his wife and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Bill is still a sad character, but he's voiced brilliantly still voiced brilliantly by our boy Stephen Root, right? And it works, right? When it comes to Dale, who is voiced by Toby Huss. Well, I know Dale is your favorite character here, right? But yeah, Dale is still coming through with that conspiracy theorist shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just always have something to say, right? Always have something to say with anything that happens on the street, in the neighborhood, in the community. He always has something to say, and it always has something to do with some kind of black hat kind of conspiracy thing that you will see the dark web and all that kind of stuff. That is him, right? There's actually an episode involving AI and how he worked at it and said, yeah, I know about all this stuff, Dred. That was brilliant as well. And yeah, he literally had a coach. He had a coach Hank, and hey, on this is how you protect yourself from phishing, for example. This was an episode, by the way, right? Yeah, this is what you had to do. And yeah, those moments were brilliant, right? Boomhauer, of course, is Boomhauer. So laughable, so funny as well. Again, just the accent and just how he delivers the lines is great as well, right? And then just wrapping things up. And what they do with Bobby as well too, absolutely works as well, right? I like that his character continues to grow where, yeah, he's a business owner. He still doing his own thing, but he still want to make his parents proud. Well, of course, the Peggy still being overprotective over him, Hank being a little iffy in terms of his choices ever so often, but he always want to respect his son, right? And then last but not least, that finale, I really thought, just brought the season, just brought a great conclusion to the season as a whole, right? In particular, where Hank is gonna go going forward, right? So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get a next season next year. I guess maybe that might be the approach with Hulu going forward, that we'll just get these things on a yearly basis, right? Not like how with X-Men 97, where we had to wait 2 years now from, the first season to this next one, right? But I feel like, they're gonna do the, yearly season run thing, which I am all for, right? But yeah, this revival makes a lot of sense. I cannot see that, season 13 wrapped I can't say that the show was mercilessly cancelled in any way, right? Because I wasn't following up on the show at the time, right? But this was a show that, like, this season to me really feels like, yeah, boy, this was a show that needed to come back, right? How it updates itself in all the right ways, but how it stays true to its formula in the right ways as well too. Yeah, just totally worked for me, right? And for me, this just made for a fantastic season that, yeah, I can't help but recommend, boy. So yeah, for me, I'm gonna give this a strong 4 to a very like 4.5 out of 5, man. This was a great season, one of the best seasons of a TV show that I've seen all year. And just to repeat myself as a wrap up here, it's just pretty much a show. Yeah, this is why the show still works, man. This is why the show should continue going on, right? Not saying that we should go as long as Simpsons, right? But yeah, just keep telling these great stories. Let's just see these great characters and see where they go in this decade here, right? And yeah, I really think that Hulu and Mike Judge and everybody involved really come through real good with this revival here, man. I can't wait to see what we get next, right? So last thing before we move on now, speaking of Simpsons, now I'm hearing that the actress, I think what's the name, Nancy Cat, right? I think that's the name. The one,
right, voice for Bart.
Right, the voice for Bart, right? Yeah, she's speculating that Simpsons will end at season 40, and like the first time I saw that article, I was like, wait,
I'm not sure
what season they in now? Like I can't even remember what season they're in right now.
Yeah, because Simpsons is almost 40 years old.
Right,
No,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think that'll be the case, but I suspect that when one of them die, one of the big ones die, I think all of them go like this, like I can't see them continue, and they'll just end it. Like to me, it make like if it ends at season 40, that'll be perfect. Like one more movie, season 40, that is it.
Yeah, I think I mean if that is actually what they're gonna do, I think yeah, season 40 is like the perfect stop point to just stop things at, right? Yeah, but I don't see this happening for King of the Hill, right? But yeah, before we get to not so much your thoughts on the season, okay, I haven't seen this yet, but yeah, just your thoughts on just this revival show. Well, just this revival of the show as a whole, right? And how it's going so far, at least in your opinion. I'm now wondering if we're gonna go as far as say like where American Dad or Family Guy is and all that kind of stuff, right? Where it could just keep going and going and going until when you least expect it, it just sort of ends, right? So how
Yeah,
do you
no,
feel about that with King of the Hill?
yeah, the case, as I say, the case of King Hill, because it's so very deliberately like creates a sense of continuity, right? In American Dad don't do that, right? Both American Dad and especially Family Guy, they have Peter just blowing his brains out every 3 episodes or whatever, or some nonsense, or jumping from a train or some crap. Like things will happen that he died in a cutscene. So like that zaniness or what do you call it? That type of surrealism or whatever you want to call it. That don't really apply to the thing, but because King of the Hill is by definition a workable continuity, very very almost all of it is consistent for the most part. Yeah, it is a different concession to evolve it. That's what I was saying. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem if you bring back 90s or bring back old stuff, but unless it's gonna be in that kind of surrealistic zombie state. Like American Dad or even Simpsons. Simpsons have a workable continuity for what they try to do with it. Like even though the children don't age or whatever. My thing is that like you have to evolve. Like that's my main thing. So that's why King of the Hill is one of the more appreciated shows, all things considered. Because it ended, but then it didn't need to end, and then they just age up everybody. Good. That's what you're supposed to do. Anyway, whatever. It's a cartoon. I don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So before we jump into the next show here, yeah, this is how you evolve the material, right? While staying true to its essence, right? So yeah, I am all for what Mike Judge and his team are doing so far with King of the Hill, and yeah, I cannot wait for season 16, man. I don't know if you'll get next year or the year after. I don't know, but I am definitely ready for this, man. Right? But yeah, season 15 is a real deal. Definitely check it out. So sticking with Fox now, let's talk about another show that had its beginnings at Fox and now is over on Disney Plus. Yeah, let's talk about the second season of X-Men 97, which the three of us, including Daniel, shout out to Daniel, yeah, came through 2 years ago, to talk about its first season, right? So following the many events of season 1 now, this season really focuses on Cable, right? And the idea that we've known about ever since he was brought into the world of Marvel Comics, that he is destined to stop, to stop who is arguably the first mutant that will be Apocalypse, right? So where the first season ended is that some X-Men were sent to the future where Cable as a boy, as Nathan, was a kid, right? And then others were sent into 3000 BC, pretty much to try to get Apocalypse, who back then was known as En Sabana, pretty much to try to stay him, if you will, off of his destined path to pretty much, becoming, the Apocalypse that we know and love / despise, right? However, a few X-Men are left behind, right? That will be Bishop and Forge, both of whom, find ways to bring the X-Men back to, 1997. And then, there's Jubilee and, Sunspot, who were left behind, right? Because of the whole debacle that was going on Asteroid X and all that kind of stuff, right? Or Asteroid M, sorry, right? Well, when it comes to those two now, they become part of adult Cable's, X-Force, right? So this is a team that, he pretty much put together, and together they are looking for Apocalypse and, his minions, right? And they run afoul numerous times of X-Factor, which is his government-funded, group of mutants or superheroes, if you will, right? And yeah, they have this rivalry thing that's going on, right? But yeah, when it comes to, there's those two factions of X-Men that were, pretty much set aside. They go through the separate adventures, and then through some circumstances, they come back to 97 now. And then now, they have to face the threat that is Apocalypse, right? While, trying to deal with Cable, who is hell-bent on stopping them at all costs, even if it involves someone who is presumed dead coming back, right? And I'll stop there, right? So, just to get this out of the way, right? Even though this season was not as great as the last one, and there's one simple reason why, right? I still thoroughly enjoy this. So while the first season is like best of the year, I would say that this one is honorable mention. But that's not to say that the quality has like gone down a huge bit, right? I think that the momentum is still there, but really for me the reason why I think this season was not as strong as the last one is just because of what the first season one, which was, oh my god, we are literally getting the season of X-Men that we've always wanted, right? After it was cancelled back in like what 996, right? When it was on Fox, right? So I think the reason why we loved the first season so much, it was like, oh my god, the gang is back. They replicated the animation style, but they added their own twist it as well. They get in some of the OG voice actors, but they get some new people as well too to replicate some of the old voices as well. We get in a more TV 14 slash TV PG approach to the X-Men cartoon that we grew up on, but it's not done in an edgelordy kind of way. It's updating the formula, but it's not like diluting it for the sake of, we're in the 2020s now. So it really feels like a return to form now, but it updates the formula, similar to like what I just said, with King the Hill, but they update it in very smart and subtle ways, right? But with this one, it's more of the same, which is to be expected. But I feel like just narrative wise, it's and it's also doing the same thing that the last season did, where it's not just giving us one long narrative stretch out over the course of a season. They will just intercut it with like these different little side quests and episodes and stuff like that, right? So it's not all about Apocalypse. You also have different things going on as well too, right? But I just think like with the Apocalypse stuff, right? It started off strong, but with the last two episodes, which is a two-parter, right? I felt like the Apocalypse stuff could have been handled a little bit better. The best way I could sum it up is like this: it could have been a three-part finale, if you will, right? Similar to the last one, where you got more of Bastion's plan and what it is that he was setting up, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a three-parter that closed off this season. With the two parts here that we get here, I felt like it just wasn't enough to like I was with the story. I was feeling where it was going, but I just felt like some moments they either skipped over to just kind of get to the point of things, or they just sort of rushed through. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like we could have just had one more episode. I mean, no mind this season is 9 episodes, but with just one more, just make it 10. Then yeah, we would have a solid finale, right? But yeah, that being said, though, the storytelling is still strong. How they were just able to expand on the character of Apocalypse works. Just the mere fact that we go all the way back to 3000 BC and we just see him as this mutant who's trying to survive, but the world, the Egypt, right, that he's a part of there is vicious to him. And it adds to the cruelty that he feels, just the animosity that he feels towards humans, right? So just the moments with Magneto of all people trying to coerce him into seeing things in a much different way, actually works, right? And no lie, what they do with Magneto, pretty much just that scene with him getting killed by that caught me. No lie, that caught me, right? And here's the thing, compared to when Gambit died in episode 5, we'll get to Gambit in a bit, right? Where I wasn't watching the show weekly, yeah? But thankfully, this moment with Magneto was not spoiled for me online, right? So that caught me completely by surprise, right? So when I saw that Gambit moment, I was like, oh, that's why people were feeling that kind of way. But it didn't, like, I was hit, yeah, but it didn't hit me, right? I was like, oh, I feel the moment, but I wasn't like going online and saying, oh my god, how can you kill Gambit? You know what I mean? Because, sorry to say this, right? I have to say this with, with Magneto as well, too, right? this show and X-Men as a whole is the type of universe where characters could get killed, and then for whatever reason, whether it's space magic or sci-fi magic, whatever it is, the characters could come back.
Like as a horseman
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
is that kind of show, right? So even though I know Magneto will come back in some way, shape, or form, I still felt it, right? And it's because of how that scene was set up with him and Apocalypse and Xavier in the sand dread, and just seeing Charles, like, well, Xavier, right, crawling, trying to save Magneto, boy, that moment, and just the lines that was delivered, right, from between Apocalypse and Charles, boy, that got to merger, like, no lie, close to my auntie as I got to know, just offer that back and forth, right? Of course, the first 3 episodes are great in my opinion, and what I just talked about there with the whole death of Magneto thing is part 2 of Rise of Apocalypse, right? Remember, we got the first 3 episodes, and Disney Plus being the bastards that they are, give me part 1 of Rise of Apocalypse, right? So yeah, I had to wait like a couple months until this full season wrapped up to see how it ended, right? And how it ended with Magneto's death, I wouldn't like caught no, right? But in the back of my mind, I was like, you know what, sci-fi magic, one way or the other, Magneto could come back, right? So I'm not too mad at that, right? But yeah, from there, well, the episode involving Wolverine and how he got his adamantium back works for me. It's kind of implausible, kind of when you think about it, well, this is why I love that Morph kind of called him out in the end. Like, you really went through all this kind of straight up suicide mission just to get your adamantium back. You know what I mean? So I actually agree with Morph in that regard, though. But I still enjoy the episode for what it was. It's just when you think about it, it's just like, yeah, like even though he kind of got Weapon X back together, it's just like, wow, like, you didn't really care. It's just like how expendable everybody is there, including Morph, right? Which is supposed to be, your Wolverine's friend, right? But yeah, just all that drama just to get the adamantium, right? It's kind of implausible by X-Men standards, but I'm just glad that he get it back, though. Even though with how the season started off, I was like, you know what? I don't know if he'll just if I could if I'll be okay with him rocking bone claws throughout the season, I don't know. But I'm glad that he get it back, right? For what it's worth, right? The stuff with X-Force works for me. Just seeing Cable and his team, and just seeing how Jubilee clashes with him and all that kind of stuff totally works as well. And just seeing how the X-Men just preparing themselves to go up against go up against Apocalypse, right? Mad points for them forming X-Corp, though. Did not see that coming. And I am speaking as somebody who not versed in all things X-Men comics, so I didn't know that X-Corp was a thing. It's like, okay, X-Corp is a thing, alright, right? Also, Cerebra. Ha ha ha, okay, I see what you did there. That's kind of clever. But yeah, them setting up shop in Genosha make a lot of sense. Also, like the follow-up episode where they went to the Savage Land, basically, that was cool as well. And I also love that they brought back...
that was a solid episode.
Yeah. Actually, it's one of the best episodes in my opinion, mainly because of the whole trial with Creed and Creed, right? And Nightcrawler, though, being the MVP of this episode, pretty much coming and
to be honest.
Yeah, and this season, when you think about it, right? Yeah, just pretty much defending Creed, though. It's like, what? Like, that's what I talk about, though. Just progressing the material. This works, yeah.
Colossus' answer at the end was good, was like, okay, that catch you. Like, it would.
Oh, yeah. Colossus. Yeah, what he told him, right? Yeah. Because, I wasn't really thinking about Colossus, right? But he was always one of my favorite characters from the old X-Men series, right? But I'm glad that he was back, and I like that he was framed in the attack at Genosha, and his sister got killed. And, it was really heartbreaking seeing that, right? But him just pretty much saying, listen, like, we running the Savage Land now, and we capturing Creed, and we're gonna kill him, right? But the idea of this trial to defend him make a lot of sense. I think that absolutely works, right? But yeah, Nightcrawler kind of coming in and defending him, and using his Christianity as a backbone, as a foundation, for his moral view of humans, and how Creed and his Friends of Humanity group has treated them over the past, right? Also, mad points for him. For Creed, repeating what is, in my opinion, one of the best lines in all of X-Men, in my opinion, comics, TV shows, or otherwise. And this was from the old series, where I think it was in the premiere or a subsequent episode, where Jubilee had asked Creed, "What did we ever do to you?" And Creed say, "You were born." that was burnt into my psyche, Trent. I never forgot that. That's like one of the greatest lines I ever heard in my life, Trent. And I love that Creed repeat that line, like you were born, when he was asked a similar question. I get chills when I hear that, you know. I was like, yes, this absolutely works, sir.
Especially with Creed's, especially with Creed's, well, his origins himself now, like who's his parents? Like, okay, nice, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hearing, you know, how Mystique and Sabretooth mistreat him as a kid, though. I won't lie, that hit me too. That really hit me as well too, right? And then, you know, of course, when I get to the last two episodes, which you know, are technically a two-parter, right? Even though it's not like a to be continued per se, right? Yeah, I felt this was where the show's this season kind of dropped the ball here, right? Because it was all setting up the whole idea of what it means, what apocalypse means, right? You know, whether it's the end of, you know, your life, the end of your friends or your family, whatever it is, or what does it mean when we get rid of apocalypse, right? As you know, as Cable was brought up on for years now, we see him in different timelines dealing with that, right? Now I'm all for bringing back Gambit. I'm all for that. Him being technically the avatar of Apocalypse was a huge stretch in my opinion, even by X-Men lore. And yes, you know, with the whole Horseman stuff and what we know about them, it was a huge stretch, the whole idea of him using Gambit's body, you know. But it was cool, you know, seeing, you know, getting a little bit more backstory and, you know, just him seeing more, seeing some of his old crew and all that kind of stuff. Also, I like how they brought back actually Eson, right? I did like it's only when you see him in episode 4. It's like, wait, does he still from Eternals though, the movie itself? Like, what? Okay, like I never knew anything about him, right? But I like that he's given some background here.
But that Bayou episode had probably the highlight of the season with Nightcrawler. You know, Nightcrawler with two piece fries and a shake, Judd.
Listen, Nightcrawler. So X-Men sci-fi magic reasons, right? Apocalypse, you know, pretty much enslaves Nightcrawler, right? And I literally I watched a scene twice, dog. There's a POV shot of Nightcrawler just beating down X-Man after X-Man after X-Man. Right? And I'm like, what?
Give everybody 2-piece fries and a drink, Dread.
It's like, bop, 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 zoom, bop, 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 zoom, bop, bop, bop. I'm like, what? Oh, what is this? You know what I mean? And that was in episode 8, if I'm not mistaken. And that's how hard they went with that, right? And then, you know, what just wrapping up a review here. What they do with Rogue was very charming and whatnot, you know, just her being endued with, I'll make the joke with Wonder Woman powers. Swear to God, like, you look at this suit and be like, that's like some Wonder Woman shit she haven't they do, you know? But I like that she's...
Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, and Scarlet Witch, right? But I like that she is ultimately the one who saves Gambit, right? I love that, right? It's a shame, unfortunately, though, that because Eson say, you know, you have to give up something, right? You know, a life for life, right? So yeah, at the very end, you realize that, you know, Nightcrawler gave up his life, you know, for her to be saved, right? Minor nitpick. I wish they could have set that up a lot sooner, in my opinion, right? Because I felt like even in those early episodes, they could have set up the whole idea that Nightcrawler might not be in the show for much longer, right? I felt they could have set that up from earlier clock until as opposed to later on, as they did here, right? And again, you know, I just felt with just how they stopped Apocalypse up ultimately, yeah, was just like a bit of a letdown for me, right? Because I felt like, again, if they just had a third episode, they could have just built up how big of a threat Apocalypse is now, see that he is possessing Gambit's body, right? You know, but yeah, you know, for what it's worth, you know, things are rectified. I love the post-credit scene, or should I say, yeah, well, technically mid-credit scene, sorry, involving Mystique. You know what I mean? I like that. You know, she take the role of well, I forgot the name, the one who running X Factor. Yeah,
Valerie Cooper.
Yeah, Valerie Cooper. Sorry, right? So yeah, she gonna be calling shots now, right? You know. So I really am curious to see where Cable and, you know, X-Force in particular fits in all of this, right? And where Gambit fits in all of this, right? I wish we could have gotten a little moment in the end where you see Gambit kind of reacclimatizing himself with the X-Men, we really didn't get that, unfortunately. But, it just sort of speed through things and just sort of wrapped up, right? But yeah, even though I did not love the season as much as the last one, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. This will be an honorable mention for sure. And again, this show is once again proving, yeah, why X-Men was pound for pound one of the best superhero animated shows that we got in the 90s. I would say best period in my opinion, right? So yeah, for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a decent to strong 4 to 5, right? Thoroughly enjoyed it, despite the rough ending. It's rough in terms of execution, right? Ending that we got here, right? And this season that we got, right? But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, flaws and all, right? But yeah, Ricardo, your take on this season here. I can mention some spoilers, and then you can get to your final thoughts rating, and then we'll get to Tracy.
Yeah, kind of a step down. Yeah, they kind of missed the Mayo a little bit, right? A little bit of a step down. Probably first season. I'll admit, even without the honeymoon factor, still a bit of a step down. Mostly because it felt a little aimless and much weaker of a through line that the first season had. The first season had a much stronger through line. And then, as I say, it felt rushed. This could have had like a couple more episodes to flesh stuff out a little better. And that's about it, because he just decided to go off on little tangents that kind of relevant, but not all of that relevant. And I really felt they could have focused and tied together the apocalypse stuff a little better. And yeah, I didn't. I can't say I liked it. I can't say I hated it, but it was just okay. This feel a little aimless. But enough solid episodes for me to love it. As it is. And yeah, I really thought they would do the. Actually, with the one moment I thought was a little disappointing, and when that final moment with when Apocalypse surrounded Xavier. I really thought we was gonna get Onslaught at that point or something. But the finale with what's it called, she?
With Rogue?
With Rogue?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was working. Sorry, I don't know what he was going for. Maxima Rogue or Wonder Rogue or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. I'm sorry to stop you there, right? But I thought that at least with the whole idea of Apocalypse possessing Gambit, that was going to allude to a potential onslaught, because the whole thing with Polaris and Charles's memories of Magneto. I thought everything was gonna lead up to onslaught in some way, but we didn't get that.
Yeah, it would have been much cooler if it was onslaught for the final fight. That would have been much more engaging. But yeah, the whole Wonder Rogo, I don't know what he was going for with that. That wasn't interesting. And then the final ending with Kurt is like, all right, that's fine, but still underwhelming. I get what he was going for, but still kind of underwhelming, all things considered. And yeah, that's about it. I really felt they could have done just change some of the beats a little better. And again, if we got like an extra episode or so, it would have fleshed stuff out a little better. That's about it. I couldn't get myself to hate it. Like I don't hate it or anything like that, but it is, even without the honeymoon factor of the first season, it's still clear step down. Rating, like I said, 7 out of 10 compared to the original first season. Just a 7 out of 10, closer to a 6 to be honest. Mostly because how aimless everything was. Like I like individual episodes, but it was just kind of just, for lack of a better term, just felt undercooked. Or I don't know if they had to change some of the writing because of Bodimayo having to leave and all of that, right? So that's about it.
Yeah. If I just say one quick positive I have about this show, this X-Men 97 as a whole thus far, right, before we get to Tracy, is how they pull more from the comics than the original animated series, right? Because yeah, there's like a treasure trove of characters that this revival series pulling from, like characters that I don't even know of, right? And it's just the mere fact that they are in this show and they find ways to make them work, even if it's true, the cameo king that is more for just side characters or guest appearances, whoever it is, that totally works for me, right? But yeah, that's the mere fact that they just pulling from so much X-Men material. You know what I mean? This totally works for me. I love that creative decision, right? But yeah, Tracy, your thoughts on this season, and if you want to get spoilery, you can get spoilery.
Oh, no, I'll tell you this. In the beginning, there was supposed to be 10 episodes during the bull run. That is actually somewhere there on the record. It's supposed to have been 10 episodes, and they brought it down to 9. And I know that we are getting season 3, and season 4, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be in production. But with Bo, and there's a greater conversation to be had there about like the person versus the work or whatever. But in a very real sense, if you were going to have 10 episodes and then it brought down to 9, and from a writing perspective and even having to redraw and all this kind of things, some things you could legitimately feel the weight of the things that were pulled out or where it could go. Because I was one of those persons who sat down there thinking, oh, okay, Magneto's gone Onslaught. And I'm not even that deep into the lore, but I was like, I know Onslaught is coming because X, Y, and Z. There are things in there like, okay, you've given Wolverine back his claws, but the conversation that Morph has with Lady Deathstrike and Wolverine himself at the end when he says, I'm just an animal, I'm just good for my claws, and Morph says to him, this makes me sad. That should have had consequences. Where are the consequences? Like at the end of it, you see when they're fighting Psyche, they see two Wolverines. So Morph just forgets and goes about his business. There's no consequence to the idea of Morph being, for want of a better way of putting it, being used or just tagging along because they have feelings for Logan. How do you deal with that? It's like that I feel like could have been tied. I love individual episodes, like in season 1 they did the whole life, death, and the Motendo,
Right.
and that in a real sense, especially the Motendo motif paid off not just in the end of season 1, but like it paid off here in season 2 in terms of a more adult Jubilee owning her powers, even joining X-Force and being a force to be reckoned with, jumping out of the plane and all that kind of stuff. So my guess is that the crumbs that they sort of laid, or the seeds, not really crumbs, the seeds that they laid here in season 2 is going to pay off in season 3, but it shouldn't necessarily play to that. It should wrap itself up as a season. That's my general feeling of it. I liked Kurt's sacrifice. It took me back to Vormir. So the notion of, because like in Vormir, you knew that between Natasha and Clint, somebody was going to sacrifice their life, but you weren't exactly sure how it was going to play out. And so when I'm using your terminology here, but when Wanda Rogue leaves the ship, you kind of knew Kurt was going to take something of it. There's a line that he says to the to the Celestial, where he's talking about his death being the seeds that sort of brings out a new day. And it was really funny to me to see in that mid-credit that Kurt is gone and has done the sacrifice, and his half brother is now president, and his mother is now fully formed coming back into the thing. Although I will be honest, I was one of those people who was very much into the idea of Valerie Cooper is already Mystique. So the idea of Mystique just taking over her body now, that's interesting. I'm glad that Disney and Marvel Studios in general has enough faith that we're getting a season 3 and a season 4. And I think it was Brad who was saying that they want left for him. He would love to do. I think it's Brad. Don't hold me for gospel. But somebody in there in that Disney network was saying they would love to have 10 seasons, and I really find a season a year would be brilliant. Let's do it. But and this is the but, you need to tighten up your storylines a little bit more. If you're going to do these types of big swings, let the big swings, I'm willing to go with you for the big swings, but let it actually tie and mean something. Let that whole, what was the point of having not the blob, Ricardo, what is the name of that entity that Wolverine was fighting? It wasn't the blob, but there's a name for them.
Brood. The Brood.
The Brood, right. Okay, so you have the Brood. What was the point of the Brood? Because I'm looking at there's a thing in there with the Brood, them using the technology, the blood of the Brood to be able to have people more slavish to it. And I was thinking, oh, Apocalypse is going to use that because when he tried with Kurt, when he tried with Archangel, that didn't work, so he's going to use the blood of the Brood. No, that didn't go anywhere. Being said, all that rah-rah being said, X-Men 97 really does still continue to hit a sweet spot for me as like kid growing up watching this show, but also the evolution of it. I am eagerly awaiting to see where they come with next. This will get a little higher for me. I will give it an 8 out of 10. I will probably do a rewatch before the year's end, and we'll see where it actually lands. But like, yeah, there was more good than bad in X-Men season 2, but I really felt the massive borehole, for one of a better way of putting it, that was not that was not there. You
Right.
could feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
so
right.
that's me.
Last but not least, closing off this episode here, let's talk about D23, right? So you'll talk about all the big things that happened, right? So, let's start off
Yes.
with like the biggest thing here. I'll do the introduction here, right? So start off with the
Mhm.
biggest thing, right? So we are getting, as far as rides, right? When it comes to Disney, we're supposed to be getting a Daredevil spin along. All right, that's just my
Oh,
dumb joke.
really?
We don't really care. What we really care about really is just the news about shows and movies, right? We don't care about rides. Nobody cares about rides, right? But anyway, so I just basically was just reading off of a article online, right? But yeah, that's the first thing that pop up here. Some Daredevil spin along thing. Like nobody tunes in for rides, right? We want to see what's the next movie, when it's coming out, new trailers, all that good stuff, right?
Mhm.
So let's read it up in terms of what what took place, right? So we're getting a Frozen tree next year. Okay, cool. We're getting a Zootopia tree. That's cool. Incredibles tree, which was one of the big
Yeah,
announcements that you,
that one
Tracy,
I
shared with
actually am
me.
interested in.
And
Yeah.
well, that and Lilo and Stitch too. And I'll repeat the same thing that I messaged you when you sent me that news on that Friday night, right? Incredibles tree, yes. Lilo and Stitch 2, no thanks. Like I really, really, and we talk about the animated film, and not that well, you say god awful, Ricardo. Yeah, god awful live action remake that we got last year, right? We're getting Coco 2, which is funny because I love Coco, right? I mean, the ending of Coco brought the man tears out of me, right? But I always thought that was it. That was like a standalone film, right?
Standalone, right, right,
But apparently we get a sequel, so like, okay, cool, all right, great.
I was more expecting a sequel to Encanto, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Oh.
No, seriously,
Mm.
but like I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe with that, maybe it's in sorry, that pre-production, but maybe in development, like they're just sort of finalizing things, I guess. But
Right.
yeah. Personally, I would have rather. I would have been looking forward to an Encanto sequel than a Coco sequel, right? But here we
I
are,
mean,
right?
well, I see Lin Manuel come back there, so he did. So okay, the quality, hopefully the quality will be there.
Well, he got an award. They usually make them Disney legends. I think he got an
Right.
award.
Yeah. We get a live action Tangle movie, which nobody asked for, but I mean, I really, really enjoyed, the original Tangle, so I don't know why they would remake it, but Disney is in an era now where they could do whatever they want. Vision Quest. Yeah, talk about that trailer for Vision
Yes,
Quest,
please.
right?
Right.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I like the fact. All right, so first off, right, this is like one of the most highly anticipated trailers for me, right? And first off, this again is on TV, right? Groundbreaking trilogy, according to Disney Plus, right? According to them,
Mhm.
right? Because I always saw WandaVision and Agatha all along as, yes, they are connected, but I didn't see them as part of a trilogy, right? But that caught me by surprise when they say groundbreaking trilogy, right? Because but yeah, I know the shows are connected, but I didn't know that they connected in that way. Like I don't know if it's like one full
There were
story that
rumbles
they're
about
telling
that.
us. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
There were rumbles. There were rumbles about the idea of like this is going to round off the trilogy. When they first started talking about the idea of Vision Quest like 900 years ago, because these things take forever,
Mm.
they started feeding the notion of this being a trilogy concept.
Right,
So
right.
after that, I mean, I don't know if where you're going to see Paul ever again or Elizabeth or anything like that, but yeah, it was kind of low-key seeded,
Yeah, low key
seeded
seated.
inside it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk it quickly now. So I'm now wondering if, in addition to Scarlet Witch, if we're gonna see Agatha in this show and how she's gonna be worked into it, right? Apparently we're not gonna get all the episodes on October the 14th, which kind of sucks. I think if I'm not mistaken, we will be getting one episode as the series premiere. So when that comes out, of
Okay.
course, we'll form like Voltron and talk about it, right? But yeah, this this trailer had me like real intrigued. I like the fact that it telling me things and showing me things, but I still don't know what the real story is about, right? So from what I gather, it's just basically about Vision himself trying
Right.
to figure out who he is and if he like the shred of humanity that he has, right? Through like I don't know, like looking into his mind through his memories, right? I like similar to what the Vision, he kind of create this sort of space for himself, and it's in the form of this mansion, and he's kind of like revisiting events, and he has like a movie room, and you see events from the Avengers movies and stuff like that. But he also has characters that live in the house as well too, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff there. And it's reminding me of oh gosh, it has a sort of a Truman Show kind of vibe to it, where it's like what you're seeing is not real, you know what I mean? It's that kind of vibe there. But it's not meant to be real, but he's also trying to understand his own reality too, right? So it's how they play on reality and, his place in life and all that kind of stuff, right? So he's similar to Wanda. He has this artificial reality, but he's also kind of using this sort of cope. Well, in this case, he's trying to cope with not really knowing who he is or where he has to go or what his purpose is in life, right? So I kind of like that. I like that, right? And lastly, the light-hearted approach to things is not off-putting, but it sort of caught me by surprise. But I think it works in the case of this show here, right? But I think that they will follow a Wonder Man sort of formula where it's not like it will be dark at some points, but not entirely dark, right? But not like how WandaVision was, where you had the full 50s and 60s and 70s, well, sitcom aesthetic, but it was hiding. It was like just their surface level, while underneath it was just telling this very dark story about grief and loss and stuff like that, right? But again, that is right. I don't know if they're gonna go with the WandaVision formula or the Wonder Man formula, but I feel like it'll be a mixture of the two, but within this whole simulated reality thing that you would expect from a character like Vision, right? But yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on the trailer?
Yeah, they're pulling from that energy. Well, the comic divisions, right? They gain that whole suburbia thing as well. They playing with that. I love
Oh,
to see that you have the old versions of the other AIs inside him, because it's like so dummy. Friday, they're there, like cool. And
yeah.
then look, we get
Ultron, you saw
well, no, that was it. We get straight Raymond at Reddington energy. You love to see it.
yeah.
Because that is the main reason I was looking for this. It's like, wait, you're gonna be like Raymond Reddington, right? Like that's what we're gonna get, right? And yeah, we kind of get that. And
Plus
it
Peter.
right. Yeah, top tier speeder, as you see, right? And yeah, I just genuinely excited for this, mostly because yeah, Paul Bettany is always be part of something solid. Like he's never like let you down in that way. So I was expecting, genuinely excited for this one. I really want to see where they're gonna go with it. If they're gonna do something connecting to Doomsday, not sure, but one way or the other, it just looking really damn good. This looking good.
Yeah, Tracy, your thoughts on the Vision Quest trailer?
To answer something you were saying earlier, this is my theory. I think it's going to lean heavily into the secret darkness of WandaVision, and I say that only because I genuinely think that Ultron is going to be his Agatha, in terms of how Agatha was
Right.
her friend and helping her along in some way, but there was a reason behind it. We all know that Ultron has always wanted that synthezoid body.
Right.
So the notion in the trailer of Ultron being there and sort of helping him guide into like, this is where you need to be, but at the end of it, I really do think that's going to be a thing. And then a long while ago, I remember, I have to look for the article, but Paul was talking on the idea of Vision Quest being about fathers and sons. And so you have the father in Ultron and the son in Vision, and then you have Vision as father and Tommy, because Tommy now
Right.
exists in our world. How do you play into that? I don't necessarily think that we're going to get. It would be really fun, but I don't see Agatha coming in here. But it would be really cool at the end, because at the end of Agatha, all along, he and Billy left to go and look for Tommy. Even though you might not necessarily get like the Scarlet Witch may not necessarily come back or anything of the sort, it would be really fun, like maybe in a post-credit scene, that the two boys meet up with their father and we could have a really nice wrapped up moment. That would be interesting. But I genuinely feel like underneath all the quasi points of humor, you're gonna get straight WandaVision darkness. in terms of that. Even like there's a scene in the trailer there where it looks as if Friday is doing some sort of exorcism and you see his eyes red and he looks like if he's floating or something like that. It's like, yeah, okay, it's Halloween, so I fully expect all of these things to take place. I am so ready for Vision Quest. I'm so even the notion of like a Vision Quest because if I remember like just in general lore of Vision Quest is where you literally have to do an introspective of yourself and figure out who you are and all that kind of stuff. So to have this play out like that, I am keen to see where it goes. I really would love to see Lizzie back in this world because it's been too damn long. But yeah. That was that was the main thing that I was looking forward for D23. Give me my Vision Quest trailer, all the X-Men news and everything else that's happening. Brilliant, but that was it.
Yeah. So before we get to X-Men, right? So just quickly as far as TV shows go, season 2 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, this was another thing that you shared with me, Tracy. We're supposed to get in Venom. I'm trying to remember because we haven't covered the first season of that show in a hot minute, right? I was trying to remember if Venom made an appearance. I think he did.
Yeah, it was true. But with the alien portal, they open my alien portal and he come through.
Right.
And a little bit of the dripping stayed behind or whatever.
Yes.
So it was an alien portal, but also a Doctor Strange time loop chicanery was going on there.
Right, exactly. And last trailer we'll talk about here as far as TV shows go, season 2 of Ahsoka. And this,
Right.
listen, like I have not watched the first season in a while, so I had to refresh my memory of that. But I am just seeing, McGill just kicking a lot of ass with lightsabers. And, of course, Anakin returning as well, too. And I'm just seeing flashy visuals and just crazy Star Wars stuff. I'm like January 20th, 2027. Bring it on, please. If we get like a 2-episode premiere, which I suspect we'll get, cool, no problem. But I am excited as all hell for this, right? Even though I'd admit it's been a hot minute since I saw that last season, and I still have not watched Star Wars Rebels, so I still will be going into this not knowing all the lore behind, or should say surrounding Ahsoka, right? When it comes to like characters and their appearances. Yep. Yes, but yeah, I'm excited.
You're the person for that then. At the end of Ahsoka, they end up in one part of the universe, kind of stranded, and Ezra is back in main galaxy, and Thrawn is back and all this kind of stuff. So he's going to restart the war. But now that she's there, there's a line in the trailer where Anakin says to her, "You have to complete your training and figure out if you're a Jedi or not," because she had actually walked away from the Jedi Order because of some stupidness that was going on. So that is a really cool thing for us to see if she finally realizes it. But you going in relatively without all the information, you are the perfect candidate. I would love to hear your thoughts on season 2 and on Rebels when you're through with it.
Cool. And yeah, well, Ricardo, any thoughts on the trailer?
Yeah. Pretty cool. Looking interesting. Not super hyped on it, but it's like, yeah, okay, it's solid Star Wars stuff. I just kind of hyped for Tone. Tone. Grand Admiral Tone. That's pretty much. Yeah. So that is pretty much it there. I'm not super hyped over this, but I enjoy first season enough. So it's like, I'll take it in.
Yeah. So let's talk about X-Men quickly, right? The confirmed cast, right? This was a big deal, right? So yeah, I mean, obvious because everybody. Well, I assume everybody either saw Spider-Man Brand New Day or know of the big spoiler. Tracy, I'm looking at you. Yeah, CD Sink.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So CD Sink is Jean Grey. Kit Connor is Cyclops. Christopher Abbott is Professor X. Samara Weaving, probably one of the big scream queens of this decade so far, is Emma Frost. Indy Navarrete, scream queen in the making, thanks to Obsession, i.e. one of the best horror films of the year, is Rogue. Maya Boyd is Storm, and Adam Driver is Mr. Sinister. And who better to play, in my opinion, Mr. Sinister than Adam Driver? I mean, Kylo Ren, anyone? I mean, come on, right? But yeah, I personally I'm not mad at this casting here, right? I was not like, okay, like they better cast this person or that person, because in my head, I always envision them as that, right? And I'm not calling you out for this, Tracy, right? But I will put it in the description of this video, a recent video that you put out regarding your view of who could have been casted as
Yeah,
Cyclops. I
yeah,
thought that was a
I
great
stand
video.
by that.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you very much, man.
yeah, but I know that in our heads, we all thought, oh, this person, no, this person should be Storm, not him, or her, sorry, not her, whatever it is, right? But I mean, from what I've seen here, I mean, the actors are great, right? So it's just a matter of if they will be written well. My concern is that if they will act, if they can't act, because I know all of them could act, right? It's just
Mhm.
if the characters will be written well, and if the film itself will be done well. That's my main concern, right? But the cast, I have no issue with at the moment, right? So Tracy, any thoughts on the casting, and then we'll get to Ricardo, and then we'll move on to the big, well, I should say like the biggest trailer of D23. Yeah, go on.
Just three random things. One, I genuinely, while I'm glad that he's playing Mr. Sinister, I really could see the Magneto. I feel like, given how young this cast is, and it is actually very delicious, the idea of how young they are, because it means, one, Disney could have them there for the next 65 movies that revolve around X-Men until they're old. But also it lends itself story-wise to, like, oh, we could take this into so many actual, take our time and go with directions in it. So for me, I honestly would have loved Adam Driver as Magneto, but
Right.
I will leave it to that. The only other thing in terms of that, I'm not 100%. Now here's the thing. I'm not 100% sold on Christopher Abbott as Professor X, even though he has a really good filmography and like stuff that he's done. I am willing to. I am on board with the idea of Maya Boyd, who
Right.
is theater and is very much big on Broadway and that life. Because there's a lot of people who like, I have never really seen her in things. No, because she's on Broadway. She's a Broadway actress.
Yeah, she's all
That's
theater.
important.
Yeah, all theater. Total unknown as far as filmography
Yeah,
is concerned. Which is, I think,
I
ultimately a good call.
That is a very good call. That is a
Yeah.
very good call. It is if you want to have thing, you could put it in the same direction that you did with like Iman Vellani in terms of the idea of this person here is Miss Marvel. So I wait to see how we play out in terms of her storm. I am fully on board with that. The only other thing that crosses my mind, and I mean it's already cast in stone in terms of whoever they already want to go with. But when I again went back and looked at how young this cast is in terms of like bringing them up, I was like, you know what? You could have literally just paid McAvoy and God,
Right.
what's his other name? Fassbender, who
Yeah.
are both like 40s. They're in their late 40s, mid to late 40s. The juxtaposition of an older Nathaniel Essex and a much older Xavier and Magnus with this very young X-Men still trying to figure out their powers or anything of this sort. That would have been brilliant. Just pay them the money and let them stay there forever and ever. Amen. In the same way that we've had Patrick and Sim McKellen. But I'm on board. I'm ready to see where this goes. Jack, I think it's Jack Shriver. So Jake is helming this, and I was one of those people who was like, okay, I love Thunderbolts. I like what you've done here. So go and do this thing. I don't expect. I hear that she might be. This is Jean Grey might be in Secret Wars when it comes out next year or whatever it is like that. I mean, these are all thoughts floating through the Etch a Sketch, but just watching this cast, I am 100% on board. I am curious, and I will end it with this. I am curious to see what version of Emma Frost we're getting, because yes, Emma has that kind of seduction and is a psychic, but we've already had two variations of Emma. One where she was as a throw aside character in Wolverine, and one where she was like, "Hey, I'm here as part of the Hellfire Club," and whatever that means. But I'm curious to see the level of depth in terms of where this version of Emma is. But I think Samara is golden for that. So yeah, bring it on board. Let's see.
Right, Ricardo. Any thoughts on this X-Men cast?
Yeah. I'm generally happy with it for the most part. A couple of choices I didn't think. The big surprise for me, if anything, was Storm, right? I didn't think they would go with a complete, well, as far as film is concerned, relative unknown for film. In my head, I like everybody saying Jimmy Lawson. I was like, yeah, okay, that makes some sense because, she was in Sinners. So, Black Panther 3, right, fine. But I had a couple of, like, little picks that was kind of the outlier picks. We had a couple roles. For me, it was Joy Sunday. But no, that's all that's fine. But yeah, my boy, she looking great. Can't be mad at that. Jean was there. Cyclops fine. Yeah, it's just they're going to the young thing, and this is Marvel leaning hard into they take the little L post COVID, and they're just leaning hard into X-Men and they're going with that. And I think that's everything. That's a smarter call. Feige just wait by this time, and then you finally get back X-Men, much like I'm waiting for Spider-Man more than paid its dividends. That was always the call from since the first Avengers, right? Hey, when Spider-Man and X-Men gonna show up in this stuff, and yeah, finally, and yeah, what I think and what I hope, well, this is what I hope is that they're finally gonna do the thing that the Fox people should have done roughly 10 years ago after Days of Future Past, which is lead into the modern aesthetic and make that work. And they'll tell those stories. And yeah, they done set up the story for Spider-Man, so I can see it working. And well, we will see what's going on with Doomsday and Secret War, how that's gonna lead into that. But I'm mostly happy with this. I have no major gripes or any issues here. People talk about Christopher Abbott and things like no, they can do their thing. Just let them cook. When we see it, we'll see it. It had nothing that was like had me thrown off because it's nothing. Nobody too popular or too unpopular to say, wow, that's such a bad call, right? The only person who was like the truly unpopular person was Maya Boyd, and it's like, yeah, well, she looking the parts, it's fine, good enough. I can't be mad at that, and we know she's from the theater stuff. So yeah, excited for this. Looking good when it's time for X-Men to drop. I think 2028. Well, at least is when they slated for that. I'll be there. I'll ready for that. So that's it.
And last but certainly not least, right? And it's funny that this is the second time that we close an episode of It's a Wrap with an Avengers Doomsday trailer. But yeah, we got a special look of, Avengers Doomsday, right? And yeah, you're right. This is a very Doom-centric trailer, right? Which took my back a bit, but like I understand, right, But I'll just start off with this, right? First off, this being the second trailer of anything that we've got for the movie thus far. My hope is that the next one, which I know for sure will not be the final one because we live in a time, right? I hope that the next one that we get is more Avengers centric, right? We get some more hope. We get the idea that hey, our heroes may have a chance to stop this guy, right? But this one is very much centered on Doom. I like that you hear Sue Storm kick things off, like just hearing her the kick off. This special look with her narration was actually like a really smart call. I like that it continues on where you see Mr. Fantastic, talking to Doom, right? And there's this great shot where you see like a close up of his mask and his eyes, and if you look closely, it's like, hey, are those Robert's eyes? It kind of look like Robert's eyes. It kind of look like him, you know what I mean? But yeah, just Mr. Fantastic just being pissed, like, what did you do? What did you do? All that kind of stuff, right? And Doom, for whatever reason, just saying that y'all been enjoying all their lives, or they're just living it up too much. And I just come to just take away everything from your dread. And it just really him just sort of controlling the scene. He dominates this trailer, right? And then just sort of closing things off by resurrecting, if you will, these Sentinels. It's like, oh shit, that's where we're going. Okay, wow, right? But yeah, this is the dark trailer. This is just about this setting the tone and just really making us know how big of a deal, how big of a threat, Doom is, right? I like that you're just seeing, just our favorite characters, in various stages, right? Various elements, right? But you could tell, like, now that Doom is a problem, it's like, oh, like everything gonna change here. We don't know, right? And I'll close this, right? It's only a matter of time before we see for ourselves, who is going to get wiped out. I have a feeling that a few X-Men characters might get washed. That's my speculation right now. As far as Avengers and just Marvel Studios characters, I don't know. I really don't know, but I feel like some X-Men characters might get the throat slit by the end of this movie, right? But yeah, boy. as a Doom-centric trailer, it absolutely works. I love that it still ends with the timer. You know what I mean? With still, I don't know. For me,
Yeah.
it's just me. Still gives me chills. That tick, 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 I don't know. It's just something about that just give me chills, right? But yeah. This. Let's just call it second trailer, right? They just keep calling it a special look,
Yeah.
right? But I'll close this actually, right? It's funny. Like when I see special look, I tell myself, oh, we're gonna see like the cast and crew talk about, hey, this is what this is our experiences. That's what our experiences working on the show, but this is what you can expect in the show. And Doom is this kind of character, man, and this is what these characters are gonna go through and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was what they meant by the when they say special. Look, I didn't know we was actually gonna get what is ultimately just the second trailer, or if you want to call it the official trailer, you could call it that, right? But again, I just hope that the next one will be more Avengers centric. We get a little bit more hope in terms of what will happen. And yeah, I can't wait to see what we get next. But yeah, this for Doom trailer, this was very effective. This was very, very, very effective. I can't be mad at this, right? So yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on this special look in quotes of Avengers Doomsday?
Yeah, solid opening thing. I want to see what it is. As I say, it just getting up. It does, the whole thing is to size up Doom and say how much how bad he is and why he mad and they set up the big conceit of the whole. You do what is you borrowed. What is you living on
Oh, you've borrowed like lives. Yeah,
the
you've
whole story.
taken.
And that's like they're gonna the whole plot armor and where the plot went. They kind of had to pay for that, right? Like that's a whole like interesting concession. In its own right. And yeah, all of this time travel chicanery and time foolery. Gonna be have a price tag. And every and everybody who engage in time travel. Or some kind of universe bending chicanery. That is the whole concession. And I really want to see
Yeah,
if they're
yep.
gonna like pay that off well. Right, that's what I'm genuinely excited for, right? Because it was supposed to kind of do that with some Kang stuff, but like everything fall up with that. Everybody's still mad about the whole Jonathan Majors not thing, but what I heard, and I don't know if this is true, somebody could verify this or not, is that yeah, they couldn't recast like because it had some contract stuff with involving thing. Because like to me, a
Oh,
lot of people say it made perfect sense. It recast, and I remember seeing this in the news years ago, but I was like, nah, but like that's such a dumb obvious thing to not do now. Like why would you do that? But like that only seemed to be the thing to make any sense because to sort out Kang. Instead of just jumping straight to Doom one time as it is. But like as I said, I never really liked Kang as a character to be honest. Like I'm in that camp, but because Jonathan Majors was such a good actor, at least especially in that first season of Loki, they should have go with it and keep with that to keep the true line. That's the only complaint about this. I just kind of worried that you won't care about the Doom thing as it is, and you're just kind of relying on the whole comic narrative about Doom now. It's just Doom fans of the comic, which I'm one of them. Um, as I say, all they need to do is just drop like, if they drop the beat for one BLF, I could enjoy that, and we could be good.
I know, right? Yeah. Like, no, somebody in that movie had to drop a MF Doom track. If they don't, swear to God, right? Even though I don't see myself being in cinema one slash IMAX watching the show for myself, I can play a MF Doom song off of my phone before that movie starts, right? I don't care.
It overlap with Tony because Tony he have that famous storyline demon in a bottle now. So it's that.
Right.
So I keep thinking that one BLF is the one that big the perfect one. But you can do any like just do one track. Just have it, you cut to New York after, right? So it makes sense, right? Or something like that.
Play Operation Doomsday. Play the opening song to the Operation Doomsday album,
Yeah,
Jen. Come on, man.
just give MF Doom Sound something. But that's it. But yeah, it looked good. Look, it not have much super hyped, but it's just like yeah, looking good. Like it just and especially seeing how much leg Spider-Man brand new has. Yeah,
yeah.
real momentum is here. Real momentum is here.
hmm
So they finally get the momentum going after how much time. But this is real momentum. I've seen there's a genuine palpable kind of excitement going forward. So I want to see it there. So we are hyped for it.
All right, and lastly, yeah, Tracy, your thoughts on Avengers Doomsday trailer slash special look?
Special looking cracks me up here.
I know, right?
There's a thought that crossed my mind this very morning. It was at the end of Multiverse of Madness when Claire showed up, and Claire showed up for a tour of place and was coming to take Doctor Strange and said to him, "You made an incursion, and now you have to come and help me clean it up because of all the different versions of in the multiverse that he went into." there was an incursion event and things went wrong and Claire came for him. And I thought about that this morning when it comes to like that thing that Sue says in terms of Victor was different and then he lost everything. I think the incursion events, and yes, I agree with Ricardo in terms of the idea of like all this time travel thing, the idea that he says all of you have lived stolen lives. Whatever happens, because we could talk about like the butterfly effect and like the ripples in a pond and that kind of stuff like that, but whatever incursions that would have taken place, maybe it happened on somebody else's earth, but there were ripples and it caused Victor to realize, because he is the smartest man in every room, while outside of fantastic himself, to realize people need to go, and therefore all these other planets need to go. And if we decide to really go into Secret Wars afterwards and set up, I think it's called War World, like how Victor set up War World and that kind of stuff like that. That might be interesting. But in terms of a general trailer, I don't think like I necessarily needed to see more because I would be seated anyway. I will be there, God willing, in December to see Doomsday. Yeah, I thought Marvel was doing pretty well when they came out with like Eternals and that kind of stuff. So I've just been like, all right, let's bring the Avengers as a team back. So now that we're bringing it back with, Victor Von Doom being the foil of this whole thing, yeah, let's go.